appears that President Muhammadu Buhari is breathing fresh air into his economic team, while the president has appointed Dr. Doyin Salami as his chief economic advisor. Now, Dr. Salami is expected to address issues on the domestic economy and present views on them to the president. Meanwhile, experts have warned against high taxation as being muted by the federal government, saying it will lead to collapse of businesses in 2022. So now, Adewale, according to the presidential spokesman, we understand that the chief executive is expected to, among other things, let me quickly read a note of what he said here. Yeah. Just give me a few minutes. Now, among other things, he's expected to address all issues on domestic, like we rightly pointed earlier, develop and recommend to the president national economic policies to foster macroeconomic stability, promote growth, create jobs, and eradicate poverty. Clearly, his work has been cut out. So, what are your expectations from this chief economic advisor?
Well, in the first place, for the fact that the president appointed an advisor, it's an indication that is an indirect way of admitting that there is something wrong with the economy, which we cannot run away from. We faced two recessions. We have been hit by two recessions, high debt profile, and then digit inflation. And we're in a very critical period, and there is a need for some form of intervention. And I look at the CV of Mr. Salami. He's 50 years, He attended some of the best schools in the world, and also he's not a stranger to the government, to the managing economic affairs. And his area of specialty is actually risk management. And I think if you start talking about somebody that is competent, I think he is. And we should also not forget that he had served in the CBN in one committee or the other, and part of the economic management team. So he has been in a position in the past, to advise the government, So I think that he's qualified, and I think his appointment is in order. Now, as to what should we expect? In the first place, looking at the presidents of this country, an advisor can only give advice to a government.
That's correct.
The government needs to either reject the advice or accept the advice. And I'm sure that there have been series of advices from Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, from several community teams, from the IMF, from the World Bank, from Nigerian Labour Congress, on how to transform Nigerian economy, even from state governors, even from us here. Every day we come here to give advice. So the issue is, if I'm an advisor to the president, the president has the right not to take my advice if he thinks it does not fall into his own plans. And of course, this year we are entering into the electoral year. That what is going to dominate Nigeria, I don't think our leaders. The truth is that they will not have much time, to address economic issues. People are talking about conventions of the PDP and APC. They are talking about election that's coming next year. So I don't think anything fundamental will come. Not to say that his appointment is meaningless. He may come up with some cosmetic changes, but in terms of addressing the fundamental problems, my friend mentioned electricity. In what way can this appointment now create the paradigm shift?
So you say the appointment is a little bit too late?
Maybe it could have been part of the initial team, and also one person cannot just change, the problem of corruption is there. The problem is the cost of governance, the security vote, corruption by, even the salaries of senators, House of Rep and other. Can this appointment create that? The problem is security. People can no longer go to farms. They have been displaced from their farms. They can't produce. So in what way will this address, the issue of security? So I think we have a major problem on our hand. This appointment is not a step backward, it's a step forward, but it's not something that will take us to that promised land. I'm very sure about that. We still need to do more, to be very honest with the situation, the way the country is, and to address the problem of fiscal federalism. If we want to go to mining, Ondo State has a lot of minerals. You cannot get the license, you have to go to Ministry of Mines to go and get the license. before you can do mine in a what kind of federalism is that? So states don't even have the power to explore their potentials to the brim. So me appointing an advisor in Abuja, you know, and of course he's been one of those who support free market economy. You know, he also supports deregulation, you know, removing subsidy and all that, which has been the direction of the policy of the federal government. So what fundamental change do we expect? But of course, let's give him time and see, maybe there could be a kind of miracle. So I don't want to rule him out. But based on experience, I'm not 100% hopeful.
Oh, wow. Sam, are you taking the same too, or are you saying that are you confident about his appointment? What are your thoughts?
I mean,
do you think he will steer the economy into the right direction?
Adeo has been quite exhaustive, and I share, you know, similar sentiments. So for me, it's congratulations to Dr.
Doyin Salami.
Yeah, Doyin Salami, but I don't envy him. Okay. So first, we must acknowledge that he probably has about 16 or 17 months. So one miracle is going to perform. It's also been said that he has always been around, you know, the presidency as chairperson of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. So you wonder if this is not a job. This is not just about, you know, a job, you know, for the boys. I mean, if somebody has been chairperson of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, and then you now single him as, okay, fine, now you should be a chief economic advisor. I really don't know what the difference, you know, is all about. So yeah, congratulations to him, but I doubt if there is any miracle he's going to perform. Adeo has already, you know, alluded to the fact that he's a man with great pedigree, but you and I know that in this country, it takes much more than your qualification, than your experience, you know, to excel. Sometimes, or oftentimes, you know, the forces, you know, lined up against you can just make you look like a total failure. And that's been the trend, you know, all over the place. So we want to believe that in a very short time that Dr. Salami is going to, you know, carry out his responsibilities as chief economic advisor, he would have all the liberty, you know, to advance the ideas, the knowledge that he has about managing the economy, and that these, you know, ideas or initiatives that will come from him would rub off or impact, you know, the economy at large. I'm worried that nothing significant is going to happen. I mean, he's a proponent of free market economy, and then the man who has put him in position doesn't feel too comfortable, you know, with that kind of economic philosophy. Is more inclined towards, you know, the welfare state where you give people handouts, you know, lock the borders, let's, you know, constrain ourselves and all that. And the man he has just appointed, you know, feels otherwise. And he's been very concerned about, you know, the figures, you know, that drive the economy, revenue to GDP, debt service to GDP, and the rest of it. So what magic is going to make? I mean, you have a situation where more than 90% of what you earn, you put into debt service. Is it going to perform a miracle and bring down the figures from 90% to 50% in 16, 17 months? Okay, but again, let's give him benefit of doubt that he would have, you know, all the support, all the liberty to, you know, exercise whatever initiative that he can bring to the table. Again, we're also concerned that in Nigeria, appointments of this nature don't seem to, you know, last beyond the man who puts in power. Otherwise, for the kind of scenario we are trying to build, we hope that someone like him should stay there much longer, even beyond, you know, the administration of President Buhari, and see how that impacts the economy. But I'll be surprised if you know, he survives this administration at the end of 2023.
Surprised indeed. But let's forget that there are also concerns of high taxation fears being mooted by the federal government, and it seems we're not too sure of when it will, you know, kick off. But you know, there are fears that it could cripple businesses in 2022. What's your take on this, Sam? And how do you think the government should address this issue? Because many have been crying under this high taxation over the period.
My position on taxation is very clear. I think we need to expand the tax nets rather than tax people more, because there's so much poverty. Do you tax poverty? You know, you talk about the minimum wage that is not being paid in most of the states. You talk about people who are on their own trying to manage and survive. Okay, they don't have the means to, you know, engender an economy that can truly drive the entire system. So taxing the poor more is just going to create a lot more poverty within the system. So I think that what government needs to do, and I believe that, you know, so many Nigerians, you know, see the issue of taxation from that perspective, that we should rather, you know, expand the net than tax people the more. There are lots of Nigerians who are not being taxed. The government should do much more, you know, to get people into that net, you know, and persuade them. It takes communication. It takes, you've got to sell it.
Is it about persuasion now? Because people say that they don't see what the taxes are being done with.
You're right, Esther, because, I mean, if I'm not convinced that the government is managing my contributions by way of taxation, you know, to the growth of the economy, I will do everything to avoid it. I will do everything to avoid it. So government itself has to be sincere. It has to be transparent enough. It has to be accountable to the people. The more you do that, the more you get people convinced that they need to have a stakeholder mentality, you know, in building their country. But you have a situation where the government cannot convincingly, tell the people that this is what they've been able to do with the money that they are getting from the system. People. So there's much more to it. We need to expand, you know, the net and bring a lot more people into the system, rather than, you know, tax people who really don't have anything to give back.
Right. So Adewale, in terms of this proposition from Sam, expanding the tax net. Yeah. Now, some have said that, you know, the rich don't tax them enough, and some people, like the informal sector, are not even under the tax net. So, but how do you think the government can do this, you know, how will I put it now, in a way that is fair, that the taxes that people pay is being utilized judiciously, and the taxes, you know, we do not get to hear, oh, we're increasing the tax this year, we're increasing the tax in the next 5 months, we're increasing that tax every period or any time that they feel that money that they're making from their different sources of revenue isn't enough. So what's your take on this? You
see, people are reluctant to pay taxes when they are not sure that the tax will be used effectively. It's just natural. You know, why am I paying tax? That's at one level. The other level is that if you are talking of taxation, like you said, it's better to tax the rich so as to make them to be able to sleep well in the night. So that when we tax them, some people have 10, 15 cars. Some people have 50 houses, you know. So when we tax them, you'll be able to use that one to fund, you know, the security and other things. You know, and we have had very good examples in this country. When Awolowo wanted to start free education in 1952, he introduced what they call salt tax. It's so easy because there's no way you're not going to buy salt. That one covers and people are doubtful that it's not possible, free education not possible. But between 1952 and 1954, they also introduced what they call capitulation tax. They introduced a lot of that, but people paid because they had confidence that this man will use the money very well. So in 1954, when it started with 400,000 students, pupils, free education, it was with full support. Even though his calculation was 170,000 students that will start free education in 1954, based on 1952 census, not knowing that was a fake figure. By the time people started enrolling, it turned out to be 400,000 students. But they were able to have free education, free health. People paid. People were, in fact, going from one house to the other, asking, go and pay. But when you pay taxes, you don't have roads, you don't have light. Even your light, you are going to provide the pole, you are going to do your gutter, you are going to provide your own security in your own house. So your roads, if you say that you provide the road, you go and buy Jeep. If you don't have Jeep, then you are your own. So you ask, then you pay a lot of money for water, for everything. So you now ask yourself, what did they actually use this tax for? So that's why a lot of people are out of the radar. They don't want to pay because they don't think they have confidence in how the government will use it. So the government must give confidence to people that when you pay this tax, it's going to be used effectively. And that's a fine place to live it, gentlemen. Adewale Adeoye and Sam Ibemere. Thank you very much for your insights.